Love looked down and saw hate. I will go there, said love. Peace looked down and saw war. I will go there, said peace. Equity looked down and saw injustice. I will go there, said equity. And so he did. And for a time he dwelt among us, and the things he did and the things he said and the people he touched changed everything. Love looked down and saw hatred. I will go there, said love, and love dwelt among us and yet not as us, as a sojourner in our midst, as an immigrant from the realm of heaven, as an alien from a far place. The closest word for immigrant occurs 92 times in the Old Testament alone. It is a primary concern. Over and over and over, the commandment comes, remember when you were immigrants in Egypt. Remember when you were strangers in a strange land, foreigners in someone else's home. Remember, it says, for I too have been such a one. And it is my belief that this is what we as a nation, at least in our policies, no longer do. Remember when we were immigrants and foreigners in a strange land. So today we join with other churches and Interfaith Works to think about that a little, to pray about it, to learn about it, to hear about it. You all know that Plymouth Church, as part of its most recent capital campaign, has made a commitment to support Interfaith Works financially in its refugee resettlement work, but we want to not support them in just that way. We want to give them our pulpit, our love, our prayers, our attention. They're here today, some of them, to remind you what this country is about. To remind you that we are a nation of people from other places, to remind you that God's self, has been an immigrant in a strange land, to remind you that the raison d'etre of our country and of our church are in this case the same. So Denny and Abdul, I'm so glad you're here, so grateful you're here. I want to invite Denny forward. Denny is on the board of Interfaith Works, and he's here with a few words and an introduction.
Good morning, and thank you, Plymouth Congregational Church, for all you've done and continue to do to support the work of Interfaith Works, and especially for the opportunity this morning that you've given us to help promote the Spirit of America program of Interfaith, which basically involves celebrating the liberty, diversity, and dignity so important to our country, while sharing the many success stories about our new Americans. As Quinn indicated, I'm currently a member of the board and past president of Interfaith Works. I also co-chair a capital campaign, so thanks again for your hugely generous gift to that effort. You'll be happy to know we're closing in on the final 1.8 million, and it's gifts like yours that are so appreciated. Accompanying me this morning is my friend Abdul Saboor, an absolutely amazing young man from Afghanistan who will briefly share his story with you. But first let me say just a few words about Abdul. He is a remarkable young man. He's been in this country since 2014, having emigrated from his native Afghanistan, where he was working with the American military. Since arriving in Syracuse, he initially volunteered at Interfaith Works, and just last year became its match grant employment coordinator, all the while attending U.C.C., where he graduated with his associate's degree last year. Abdul is currently an undergrad at SU, majoring in political science and expecting to graduate next year. Syracuse is indeed so lucky to have him and his family, which includes his wife and 2 kids and his parents, among us here in Syracuse. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you Abdul Saboor.
Good morning. Well, peace be to all of you. Thank you so much for having me here and sharing your valuable time with us, and for the wonderful opportunity to share a little bit about me. But it's not only about me. It's about millions of people who immigrate and flee their home countries and trying to go in another country with the hope to have a new beginning and a new start. So I am privileged and I'm honored to be here among all of you, a welcoming city, a welcoming community, and a welcoming congregation. What I do like to talk about in a short, brief time, in respect to everyone's time, is in 3 things: my life in Afghanistan, my present time in Syracuse in the United States, and where do we hope to go from here as an immigrant and a refugee, and where do we see ourselves, our futures. As Danny mentioned, young man working with the United States military. I was 17 years old. And in the mixture of war and all of those things that had destroyed our homes, we had no other option but to choose between survival and death, between history and future. And what we had the obligation to protect and provide for our families, just like every one of us. As Danny mentioned, I had 1 daughter at the time. And due to being an ally to U.S. military, to United States Armed Forces, we were being the targets of the insurgents because they believed that if they would take us, it's easier to destroy the U.S. forces, because we were the eyes and ears of the servicemen of this country. So the doors were closing on us, and we had to go for the only option, and that was to take refuge to a different country. We immigrated in 2014, and ever since we arrived here, we had started a new beginning. And it was all from starting simply by zero, from nothing in our hands. And so you could think of it as a challenge of being detached from your home, from your country, from all the dreams you had built, to starting back from zero, and yet having the obligation to protect and still provide for the family. Because at the time when we arrived, my wife didn't speak English. I had to make sure that my daughter gets to school, gain employment. All of those things that every one of us are concerned on a daily basis, healthcare. So all of those things, but yet the responsibility to make sure that you do all of those things, but yet at the same time being detached from your home was not an easy process for a lot of us. But what I do want to remind every one of us is that I am in a way honored to, I guess, wear this badge of refugee in many aspects. From our faith, Jesus was a prophet. Jesus was a refugee. Moses was a refugee. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a refugee. So I guess in this regard, all of us belong to the world in a way that we all, we're all interconnected, that we all belong to one another. And unless we forget that, then we come into all these challenges that we face in my home country. So the story of beginning, or my life in Syracuse, was simply a few things that were in priority when I first arrived to Syracuse in America. Obviously, all those things that I mentioned, to make sure that I get into school, that I move on and provide for my family, to gain employment, to make sure that I accept and my family accepts the new community that we're living in as a home, as a place that we're going to thrive and flourish and live in peace. And so I guess with that aspect, I'm proud to say, and I'm honored to say this, that we have achieved that peace. We're no longer concerned for our daily survival. We have moved on from being concerned for whether I'm going to be alive the next day. There's an opportunity for me and my family to dream and set goals And that's exactly what we're trying to do right now. I'm going to college. I'm building a future. My daughter's at school. My wife is learning English. But I want to remind everyone, because again, I am being the spotlight in many aspects of our lives. I'm here to be, and like I said, I'm privileged to be here with all of you. But it's not only about me. It's about millions of people that right now are struggling for the daily survivals of their homes. So, and if you can look at it from this perspective of, if I struggle, we all struggle. If I face challenges in my life, in the neighborhood that I live in Syracuse, my neighbors struggle with me. The community I live in will struggle with me. The government and everyone will struggle with me. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's all of us. And we ought to do better in understanding and empathizing and engaging and participating and making sure that we care for one another. Because that's exactly what I'm doing right now from the first day. Because I know exactly what each one of these refugees that come into our neighborhood go through starting from zero. And that's what motivated me, despite not having a job, to volunteer for Interfaith Works, to provide back with nothing on my hands, but yet provide the services that there was needed to go and help the others. Because in 20 years from now and 30 years from now, I know that I will look back in that life and I say that I helped all those individuals who were in need. But because I personally myself came through those routes, through those footsteps myself. So America, in this regard, has given us peace. America has given us community, family, an opportunity. It has given me this freedom of choice to be and to do to whatever I want to be in the future. And this the same thing is true for the next generation of my family. So, without taking much of your time, I really do appreciate you and your time with us today and having me here. I pray and I pray that God may guide us to the right path of righteousness, to the paths of those who love Him, and He loves Him back. And I pray that we have somehow learned that despite all these political and economical challenges that everyone faces, there's a human aspects to what we're trying to do. Whether it's interfaith, whether it's around the world, whether it's simply a young man standing in front of you. So I really thank you for your time and for giving me this wonderful opportunity. But starting from a young man who started from nothing, and now he's establishing he's going forward with a lot of hopes, with confidence, that knowing that there's a community that he can rely on to build on his life and to build on the next generations of family's life. So I thank you for that wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much.